What is up, guys? It's Jimbo here, and welcome back to another Diablo 4 build guide. Today, we're going to be going over a storm shape-shifting druid build that should be pretty good for farming to get the uniques that you want, because this build uses no uniques. It's just a lot of the stuff that you can get from the Codex of Power, and you can do this to be able to help you when you hit the early mid-game, so from like maybe 50 to 60, and then you can get better versions of the stats on this build and a couple of unique pieces eventually, which is what I'm going to be aiming to do to improve the output of it. So let's talk about the core skills. We'll go through the skill tree and all of the Paragon boards, spirit boons and such like that, and then we'll talk about the build to finish off. The first core skill we're using is Earth Spike. This allows you to impale a target. It's going to be pretty great. It's got a decent amount of range to it, and it also can fortify you when we get the upgrades. The main core of the build, though, is focusing around Lightning Storm. This will allow you to immobilize enemies and also just do a ton of lightning damage, critical chance, critical damage, and also vulnerable damage as well, combining it with all the other aspects that we have on the build. And our defensive side, we have Blood Howl, which allows us to restore some health and also give us some generation for spirit. Alongside that, Deliberating Roar, which also allows us to become fortified and slow enemies around us. And then the last two core skills that we have are Hurricane, which allows us to slow enemies around us, which is going to be very good, and also make them vulnerable. And then lastly, we have Cataclysm, which basically allows us to make enemies vulnerable to take advantage of all the lightning effects. Then our passive, we are running Perfect Storm. Storm skills that you cast grant 1 spirit and deal 15% increased damage when damaging a vulnerable enemy or immobilizing a slowed enemy. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun build crafting this and theory crafting this over the last couple of days to make sure it worked, because I was a little bit tired of playing Pulverize and some of the other builds that require uniques to kind of function a little bit more. So hopefully this build will help you. But let's jump into the skill tree, the Paragon boards, and the spirit boon. So let's talk about the skill tree on this build for my Druid. We're going to be starting off with Earth Spike and getting Enhanced Earth Spike and Fierce Earth Spike. The reason being is Storm Strike is good for storm magic, but the problem is that Earth Spike has a lot of range, similar to how Wind Shear does, but I just feel like Earth Spike kind of plays into the build a little bit more, and Storm Strike is good for others, but you have to get close to be able to hit stuff, which is kind of an issue for me, which is why I like Earth Spike and the range that it gives us. We'll move into the core skills. Of course, we're going to be using Lightning Storm. I have 7 ranks in this because I've got something on my armor. We have this up to ×5. Enhanced Lightning Storm and also Primal Lightning Storm. This allows you to immobilize enemies, and also the size of the Lightning Storm is preserved for 4 seconds after channeling. So you can kind of keep firing it on a little bit of a delay if you get your energy back, so you can keep up constant lightning. There is also the chance for Raging Lightning, but I do prefer Primal Lightning instead. Nothing else in this tree. We move down. We have 1 point in Ancestral Fortitude for physical resistances or non-physical resistances. And then we have 3 points into Vigilance. Why? Because you gain 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds after using a defensive skill. We have 2 here. We have number 1, which is Blood Howl, which is 1 rank. This will give us the kills of it will reduce the Blood Howl by 1 second. But we're using this to kind of generate a little bit more spirit, which will give us 20 spirit every time that we use it. And I can get this back pretty much every, 5 or 6 seconds, depending on how many things I'm killing. And it kind of also plays into the shape-shifting aspect of the build. The big thing, though, is Deliberating Roar. I only have 4 ranks in this, because if I get 5, that would be great. But the reason we're doing this is Deliberating Roar also fortifies you for a percentage of your base life. And then also it slows enemies by 65% for its duration. Now, the issue that the build has with the lightning is you have to stand still to cast this. This is fantastic to be able to crowd control a bunch of enemies at the beginning of a fight, use the slow, and then take advantage of them all being slowed to sizzle them with the lightning. We have nothing in the companion section, and this is where we have a bulk of our tree and where we can mix things around. If you wanted to, you could put some points into Trample instead of Hurricane. Use this as an unstoppable ability. The build does have an issue with being stopped, but as long as you have barrier and also fortify, you can survive most things. And occasionally I've been one shot randomly. I think it might just be because of the sheer amount of attacks going through at once, but maybe I'll swap this around. Maybe I'll even go with Earthen Bulwark and have 3 defensive skills and just kind of focus on the lightning strike. But we're going to go into our tree here. We have 3 points into elemental exposure, which is your storm skills have up to 10% chance to make vulnerable enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. We have increased duration of hurricane and cataclysm. We have 3 points in there. We have 3 points in bad omen, up to 30% chance when dealing damage to a vulnerable or mobilized enemy or a stunned enemy to hit them for additional damage. And we also have electric shock, which is dealing lightning damage to enemies, has up to 15% chance to immobilize them for 3 seconds. Have no points in this at the moment, which is every 18 seconds a lightning bolt hits a nearby enemy. If I was to get some crazy ranks into our lightning storm, then I could potentially drop a couple of points in that and then put it into charged atmosphere as well to make the build even more potent. But I have hurricane, enhanced hurricane, and natural hurricane on here just to be able to give me some consistent vulnerable, because sometimes if you run out of energy, you will have to go through the loop to be able to make things vulnerable again because you're using your lightning strike, or lightning storm I should say. But natural hurricane does a great job for this as well. And it also, I don't know if it slows enemy. It just slows enemies that are around you, so you can get an extra bit of crowd control. For the last tree, we have a lot of points in here. Let's talk about the ultimate first. Cataclysm is crazy when you have the upgrades for it, because you have the duration that's increased, and also lightning strikes from Cataclysm make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. But here's the other thing, something that we can use with one of our aspects can make this even better when it comes to boosting its damage output. We have 3 points into Defiance, which is nature's magic skills deal 12% increased damage to elites. Now this is where the build goes into its shape-shifting / lightning type deal, which is nature magic skills that consume your spirit heal you for 2% of your maximum life. I would like to put this up to 3, purely because it allows us to get maximum health, but I don't really feel like the 1% is as beneficial. If I can find some way to put extra points in it, I will. Purely because the amount of fortify we're going to get and barrier, you'll understand in just a moment. Natural disaster. Now this is very good. Your earth skills deal increased damage to vulnerable enemies, which is going to be very good, especially if you want to get yourself a bunch of your spirit back using our earth spike. But then also on top of that, your storm skills deal increased damage to enemies that are stunned, immobilized, and knocked. I may even drop a point from nature's magic here and put it into a natural disaster to do an even bigger damage output, and then find some extra points to put into resonance, which is nature magic skills deal 2% increased damage, triple the bonus if an earth skill is the next skill cast after a storm skill, or a storm skill is cast after an earth skill. So what you would do is on your hotbar, you would use your earth spike to start, and then you would go into lightning storm to get that benefit to work. But back into the skill tree. Lastly, we have a couple of points down here, which is one of the reasons we can boost our damage. Quick shift. This gives us the ability to increase our damage whenever we change into a different form. We also have natural fortitude. Shapeshifting fortifies you for 4% base life. This is very good. And then also heightened senses. Upon shapeshifting into a werewolf or a werebear, you also get damage reduction as well. And then lastly, we have perfect storm, which is your storm skills generate 1 spirit and deal increased damage when damaging vulnerable or immobilized or slowed enemies. Now the full skill list or tree is in the description as well, with all the aspects and stuff, so make sure you go and check that out there. The only thing that's changed will be that this has 2 and this has 2 as well, rather than this having 3 and this having 1. But let's go through the Paragon board real quick. You want to focus willpower and dexterity on this. We've made our way all the way through if you literally snapshot this board, but we are using the exploit GIF or glyph even. This will give us the ability to enhance our dexterity, and also you can see the benefit. We get plus 6% vulnerable damage, which is very good. And then in this tree here, we have decided to go with the Thunderstruck node, which is storm skills deal 30% increased critical damage against vulnerable or immobilized enemies, which we're going to work towards. I haven't got through, obviously, myself, because this is more of a mid-game build at the moment, with the amount of time I've put into my Druid. But I'm going to aim for this glyph socket up here, and then we'll see where we go from there. But let's talk about the aspects. All of the aspects are going to be linked in the description as well in the build. Hopefully that will help you if you want a bit of a snapshot, but let's run them through here. All of the aspects as well, bar maybe 2, you can get without even having to go and farm legendaries. You can get them from the Codex of Power. You can also, don't have to have any uniques in this build, as I previously mentioned at the start of the video, to make this build work. The uniques that you can get will only enhance this build further. So let's run through the aspects. First of all, on our helmet, we have the Skinwalker's Primal, which is when you use a shapeshifting skill that changes your form, you get life back, and then if you are full life, you gain the same amount as Fortify. We will be doing that with our Blood Howl and Deliberating Roar. I pop these two at the start of a fight, gives me a bunch of Fortify and slows enemies, and then also gives us the ability to heal our life as well with Blood Hell. It's very good. We also have some protection here with Disobedience to be able to defend ourselves. We also have, this one is great, Doom, the Protector aspect, which gives us a barrier. This is also great because we can have a barrier, we can have Fortify, we can have the ability to crowd control a bunch of stuff. So we're very, very tanky, which really helps out there. And then Blood Howl, in this one, is Night Howler's aspect, which essentially Blood Howl increases the critical strike chance of skills that you use. It basically boosts your critical strike chance. And the great thing about this is that you can use it in tandem with your lightning. So I'd usually pop the Deliberating Roar, pop Blood Howl, and then use the lightning strike to destroy all of the enemies. And then on our boots, we have Shared Misery, which gives us the ability, it's got Lucky Hit on it, which when you hit a crowd controlled enemy, there's a chance for it to spread to another enemy, which is very good. And then on our amulet, we have Lightning Storm, which is, or Lightning Dancer. Lightning Storm critical strikes spawn 3 dancing bolts that seek out enemies in an area. This is fantastic because it goes to all of the different ads in the area that you can destroy, and this is the main one I would highly recommend. I would also recommend Accelerating Loop. Critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed. This is going to be great for getting your spirit back. And then we also have Overcharge, which is up to a 10% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload the target for 3 seconds, causing any direct damage to them. You deal a pulse of additional amount of damage to the surrounding enemies, which is very good as well. Obviously, not a lot of these are the highest of rolls because I've used them from the Codex. Lastly, on our gauntlets, on our axe, I should say, and also our totem, I highly recommend that you go with a 2-handed setup here, or like 2-weapon setup, because it will allow you to use more aspects. Because right here you have the aspect which is Rune Walker's Conduit, which casting critical strikes with storm skills that you cast charge the air around you, causing a lightning bolt to periodically hit an enemy in the area for a certain amount of damage, and the duration can be extended with more critical strikes. And then lastly, we have the imprinted ability Edgemaster's Ancient, which essentially allows us to increase skills deal to 17% increased damage based on the primary resource when cast. So those are all the aspects. So once again, they're all in the description below, along with the full build. And also for our boons, we are running Wariness, which take reduced damage from elites. We have Energize, which gives us, we're focusing into the wolf. This gives us a chance to restore 10 spirit. Alongside that, extend the duration of our ultimate skills, so we have a really long one. And then also right here, Calm Before the Storm, nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate by 2 seconds. So a lot of talking and stuff, but the main concept of the rotation is you start off with Deliberating Roar and Blood Howl to get you into that critical chance state. Then you would either pop Hurricane to kind of give yourself a little bit of protection around you if there's anything nearby. Then hit them with the Lightning Storm, or hit one person with an Earth Strike, like one attack, and then go straight into Lightning Storm and obliterate everything while everything's vulnerable. And then when you have Cataclysm available, just pop that and it will make the sky turn purple and everything will be lit up like the 4th of July. But yeah, let's talk about my final thoughts on the build. This build is very fun to play when you get it rolling with the different aspects on it. At the moment, I have done a couple of Nightmare tier dungeons, like tier 3, and it's handled it pretty well. so far, and that was with like a less optimal version of the build. The entire stat priority is in the description of the build. It's in the notes area. To give you a couple of ideas, you want to go for more attack speed and critical strike chance, vulnerable damage. There's like so many different stats that I could list off, and then you want a lot of damage reduction in those other pieces to be able to keep you alive for longer. The main concept of this build was to help people get to world tier 4 and without getting specific uniques. Obviously uniques will help the build and they'll like scale its power a lot, but a lot of people are hitting 50 and then they're going between, you know, 50 to 55 or 50 to 60. So I wanted to make a build that didn't really require a whole lot of setup, which this build doesn't, but with the specific stats and such that you can get hold of, it will get stronger. Hopefully this build is helpful. If it is, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on the notification bell as always. This has been It's Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.